Finishing up your knot board. You have all your knots tied and they're all in your baggie. At this point, we have a couple things to do before we glue them down. Number one, make sure all the knots are tied correctly and kind of loose. I like to say, make them look pretty. Make sure all ends are equal or even or looking nice. They're not too long and they aren't sticking off the side of your board. This would entail trimming the excess so that if you have a monkey's fist with a long tail, you might trim that up a little bit so that it has a nicer finished look. Let's take this figure 8 for example. This knot is not incorrect. It is correct. However, it's not pretty yet. So we want to take a second, tweak it so that it shows the best rendition that it can. That might entail making the loop a little bit larger. Or in this case, I'm looking here, it's cinched down pretty tightly. So I want to make sure that it has a little bit more of a give to it. As you can see with this knot, the ends aren't clean, and so I want to clean these up again. The knot's pretty at this point, but I want to clean these up a little bit. So I put a little tape here. I'm just going to snip off the excess to give myself a clean knot. This is now ready to get glued down to the board. Now that we have all the knots prepped and ready to go, we now need to prep our 12 by 8 particle board that we'll be using to glue down and have as our finished knot board. The first thing we need to do is sink 2 eye bolts into the particle board to use for our trucker's hitch. And then we'll walk through how to use the glue gun so safely organize our knots. To sink these eye screws into the wood, we're going to use the tapered end of a nail to create a starter hole. All you have to do is tap that into the wood at both the top and the bottom. Proceed to screw in the eye screws. You're going to want to start on the far corner, about a 1/2 inch on either side. Quick little tap, both on the top. Roughly the same distance on the bottom. At that point, use your force to push down on the eye bolt. And I use my 2 fingers to kind of create a wedge to hold it in place. And you will just slowly twist this into the wood. Once you get it started, it goes pretty quick. Please only screw down to the threads. You do not need to go past the threads. If you do, it'll go through the board. Once you have both in, have them oriented so that the eyes are parallel to each other along the face or the long side of the board, so that when you tie off the trucker's hitch, it'll tie from closest end to closest end. Once there, you're now ready to glue on your knots and tie on your trucker's hitch. I would encourage you to tie your trucker's hitch first, and once done, then you'll be able to use your glue gun. In this case, we're going to be using hot glue to glue down your different pieces. I would encourage you to organize all of your knots on the board first and have them nicely, neatly organized before you glue them down. Again, our whole goal with this is to give ourselves, in years to come, a nice model to look at to see all the knots that we've learned.